Alright, so I'm sure a lot of people have been seeing cicada stuff everywhere online due to the dual emergence of the Brood 13 and Brood 9 or whatever it is. We had somebody come talk to our club about those periodical cicadas. They're not making it all the way down here to Louisiana, but we have our annual cicadas, the green loud bugs that we all see. So we're going to do a couple different colors on this if we have time, but this is just a basic pattern I found online. There's some very, very fancy ones that look like they would take a ton of time, and I don't know, I like to throw close to cover so I lose a bunch of flies, so I'd rather not spend all that much time tying one. So this I kind of colored up with some marker to make it look more cicada-like. We can do that, or you can just leave it, but I fished it Friday in a creek and caught some sunfish and spotted bass, so it's proven. Thread, just lay down a whole thread base on the whole hook shank starting at the eye. Just something brown or drab. There shouldn't be much thread showing by the time you're done, maybe just a little bit by the eye, so it doesn't really matter. Let's see. And then one thing about foam flies, they tend to like to spin around the hook, so I'm going to put a little dab of glue down on my thread about, I don't know, 4 hook eyes back. That's about where we're going to tie it in later, but just to kind of get something firm down there, I'm going to put a dab of super glue and then just wrap my thread over it for the moment. And that's not critical. I mean, it's just going to, like I said, prevent a little bit of your hook from spinning on you a little bit. And then we're going to take our thread all the way back to the barb of the hook. Bring my back in. So you can see the hook barb, you just want your thread hanging down to where the barb is there. And then basically the next step is we're going to dub the body kind of all the way up to that spot where I put the glue on this one, which is, I guess, 1/3 of the way back, 3 or 4 hook eyes back from the eye. We want to dub all the way from where we're hanging here at the barb of the hook to that about 3/4 up point. So if you have a dubbing loop spinner, you can do a dubbing loop, or you can just twist dub, but you want to make it a pretty thick body. So we have a pretty large clump of dubbing here. Save a little bit for the end, but you want to use a fair amount to make it pretty bushy, because that's going to be basically the only underbody for the whole fly. So like I said, I like to do a dubbing loop just because it seems to, that's a little quicker for something this large. So like I said, either twist up or do a dubbing loop, and then we're just going to make a whole dubbing body on the hook shank. Oh, you're in a disadvantage. You can't see the camera or the screen.
No, we don't go to the eye, do we?
No, don't go. I mean, you can. For now, I just go like 3 or 4 hook eyes back, about 3/4 up towards the front. And we have plenty of material, so yeah, don't be thrifty on anything. And the body is going to be foam. The piece we gave you is just a rectangle, but we want to kind of round the back off a little bit. So you can just use your scissors. I'll show you my example fly. It doesn't have to be perfectly round. It doesn't even really have to be symmetrical, but kind of just take a little bit of the edge off the hard corner. I'll show you. Go strive for asymmetry, you know. That's more natural. You don't, I mean, it just helps it stop spinning. I like to put some down. So when you got it rounded off, we want it to sit a little bit over the back of the hook a little bit, not super far. You don't want it to be dead even, but maybe a couple, 3 hook eyes of distance from this overhangs from the very back of the hook. And then another trick with the super glue is to, so you can see I've got my thread here and there's still a little bit of like dubbing here. If you put a little dot of glue where you have some dubbing in your thread, that's again just gonna help stop the whole foam from spinning on the top. So you don't need a ton, like a very small dab if you got it. And then, like I said, a little bit of overhang, and then be sure to put your foam, kind of look at it from the top. You're going to place it straight down. You just want to make sure you're not way off to one side or the other, but once you got the right length, you can hold it down with your non-tying hand and then just take your threads. Keep your thread in the same spot, 1, 2, 3, and then pull tight. So what we're gonna do now for the wing, I gave everybody, we have this, this is polypropylene yarn, but a pro tip or a money saving tip, I have a big roll of this stuff. Anybody's welcome to come take some home, but it's called Bonnie Braid. It's a braided,
Anywhere?
Well, you can
I didn't
make a
get it.
longer piece. Oh, we got more. This is just I'm showing off. Do we have any more?
No, I didn't have any.
Yeah,
more.
cut some off that one. I've already got. Yeah. So this stuff comes in, like I have a roll of it the size of a football, and I've used probably about 6 inches in 2 years. But you can cut a few inches off, and then you
Makes good gar fishing
Hey,
lures too.
gar flies are rope flies are outlawed in this club.
So then I should just tell you about the treble hook I hide inside of it.
Okay, you shouldn't. But anyway, you can unwind some of this stuff. I like to cut a piece off, put a zip tie on the end, and then you can just unfurl these and just brush them out, and you end up with like the same stuff they sell. Actually, I find it floats even better than the stuff you buy. So we're going to take that and then also take the pieces of flash, the crystal flash that you have. And align the flash with the yarn. And you can just kind of try and get it a little bit on each side. So if you flatten out your yarn piece a little bit, if you could get one piece of flash on the top, or one or two on the top and one or two on the bottom, we're gonna do it on the sides, but to show you here, it's a little easier to show you. Roughly try and put some of the flash on the top and some of the flash on the bottom of that piece, because then we're going to turn it sideways and tie it in, and then that'll put the flash kind of on the outer edges of the wing that we're making. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so if you see in a cicada's wing, it's pretty it's got a pearlescent, iridescent shine to it. So between the yarn and the flash, like I said, we're going to make the flash go on the edges. So once you got your piece tied in by the midpoint in the same exact spot, and when you lay it down, just try and keep that flash somewhat close to the edge. It's all going to get a little mixed up and blend in, but if you can keep it towards the edges to start with, it helps. So put about 3 or 4 good wraps in the same exact spot. We're not moving our thread too much right now. And then after you got it tied in the middle, we're just going to push that whole front part back. And again, if you want to try and keep that flash coming out the sides as best you can, push that whole bundle of stuff back, and then tie 3 or 4 good wraps in that same exact spot. So you should have a wing going back with flash mixed in it and kind of towards the edges. Yeah. Then our next step is the rubber legs. Here, I got them right here. I needed some too. Mm-hmm. Alright, so the legs are going to go on either side. Everyone has 3. What we're going to do, kind of imagine them in quarters. Because we're going to tie it on each strand, but it's going to go across. So find about the 1/4 way through point. Put that, I like to start on the far side. I'm going to hold that in the same exact tie-in point. Hold it all along one side of the fly, far or near, but just tie that one piece, tie all of it in right there, so you have a quarter coming back and then the other 3/4 going forward. And then you can swing the whole thing around the front of your fly.
Like around the poly or around?
Around the front, the foam coming off the front, and then you can find kind of your other 1/4 point and tie it in there. You'll have a loop coming off the front, which we'll cut later and divide that into each side.
So we want to have a big loop in the front?
Yeah, you want like a 1/4 coming off the back, tie-in point, then your loop is the middle half, and then you're tying in to have the last 1/4 coming off the back. And alternatively, you could cut that whole bundle in half and tie it in without the loop in the front, but that's just one way. I tie these back ones, loop around, and then tie it in, and then we'll just snip this part. But it's easier, sometimes it's easier to work with that loop staying there because you got less stuff fluttering around. This is basic. This is 101. Then after that, we're gonna do the head. So whatever you got coming off the front, fold back over.
Did you cut the legs already?
I left the front ones. I find it sometimes easier to keep them. You don't. I mean, you can cut them. I find it's easier to keep at least half of them in that loop. They stay a little bit more out your way. So then we're gonna fold this foam over. You just want to make a head, and you want the head to extend just over where the eye of the hook is. So you don't want it way out. You don't want it pulled way back, so you got a bunch of hook eye exposed. But just fold it back so that it's just extending past your hook eye there. And then gather everything back and tie it in that same exact tie-in point. And with the foam, I like to get one loose-ish wrap and then one a little bit tighter. And then on that third one, once you got everything set like you like, I pull down tight on that third one. Yep. I did before I tied the foam in. I didn't put glue there. You could. Yeah. But no, I didn't. The glue is a lot to help the stop it from spinning on the hook. So anywhere you have contact with the hook, it's good to put glue. But yeah, I just popped it over and tied it down in the same spot. Same tie-in point. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and cut the legs now because we're almost done. We're going to put a little bit more dubbing to cover up some of the gaps. And we're going to do a lot of trimming afterwards too. So once you got your foam tied back over, I'm just going to twist dub like a 1.5 inch, maybe 2-inch noodle. What we're going to do is we're going to put some wraps right where we have this tied in between the front and the back legs. They're all going to kind of mix together in a way. We're not really trying to separate them out. But then we also want to work our way under this front foam a little bit, cover that exposed piece of hook shank before we finish her off. So yeah, once you get your dubbing noodle, like I said, do one wrap at the tie-in point where we have the foam and all the legs tied in. And then once you got basically some good coverage of that whole area, you can try and sweep all your legs up at once and then move your thread up under that front piece of foam and put some dubbing in there. That'll help hold the head up off the hook eye for tie-in purposes and just finishes it off. And then you can do a whip finish. I dub
Like around here, then I'm
yeah. So I dub there and then I sneak go under. And that's when you have to kind of cut your legs. Well, maybe you don't, but I'm trying to think three-dimensionally here. Then after that, we just need to clean up. So I like to trim the legs. I don't. Hard to say. Less than a hook shank for sure. Probably 3/4 of a hook shank. They don't need to be super long. I mean, you can always leave them long and trim them later, but
It was Frank.
and also trim the wing to be about the same length as your whole fly. Maybe a little bit extending past it, but not too much. And then another thing to trim a little bit, not crucial, but this folded back piece of foam, I like to make that about, you know, the same length as the same size as the head. So if your folded over piece of foam is like, you know, twice as long as the head, I'd trim it to about the same size. Yeah, if you do it just right, you don't need to trim that. And that's it. Like I said, depending on the color, you could take a marker and put some dots on it. I'm going to do brown on brown here.
Well, the one that I'll never forget. Thompson, yes. Well, the worst part about it was I had to watch you do it on your left hand. Oh, man. No, it doesn't. It exposes your hair. Yeah. No, anyway, it was just snowing outside. I'll do that one halfway through the line. Well, I've been doing I've never been I mean, not the
I don't know where the ends at. It got wrapped under somehow.
I didn't know the other one was right. Okay.
Well, the one we, was the only one I had at the time was the old Thompson.
Yeah. I've got some. I'd rather do.
I can do either one.
Yeah, trim the wing maybe a hair longer than the back of the body. Yeah, I wanted to make about the same size as the front, like about equal front and back of the tie-in point.
I'd like to get the guys, the creator, man. He looks like a heck of an animal.
Who's the animal?
Alright. We got a bunch of people who are all excited about trying it out at Concordia.
What's that? This? Oh yeah. I mean, I think anywhere.
It's amazing, man. I need that out of.
Well, I looked it up. Found it online. Like I said, I found the simplest cicada fly I could find, and this was it. But no, like I said, it worked. I think I lost 2 of the 3 that I tied. So. All right.
Blow up is really fantastic.
Helpful, huh? Yeah. And then maybe one day the club will get a bigger screen.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah. Power out at home.
I like that. Just like a ski.
I'm just gonna pick him up when I get him.
You gonna do another?
Yeah. Do you wanna? Yeah.
I didn't know at the time I had so much trouble with threads.